Thank you. Thank you. Glad to be here. Just a little bit of a smidgen of my background beyond the intro. As a chef, I grew up in the restaurant industry, starting off as a cook when I was 17. And as I sort of strived for better and better restaurants in my career, I was all about working for the best chefs. So I went to New York, I worked in Atlanta, Miami, a lot of big cities, and I worked, sort of the litmus test for the type of places that I wanted to work was if there wasn't a screaming chef in the front of the kitchen, then I didn't want to work for them, because that was truly the best food, that was the top restaurants in town. Of course, this was in the 90s, when that was sort of in vogue. The type of employee management that was acceptable back then to motivate cooks is far different than what's acceptable now. So I'm going to talk a lot about this sort of staffing issue now. We're all sort of looking for staff, and it's become the biggest challenge for restaurateurs right now. The massive changes underway in the U.S. workforce, millennial generation among one of them, and how you adapt and evolve to this changing dynamic is really important to your success. So we're going to cover a lot of that. How to attract and acquire good staff, the best employees, how to nurture and develop them, and how to get that top talent. Effective recruiting and hiring, robust training, and incentive and bonus programs. So I'm going to talk a lot about what it takes to just build your team, and that's essentially what we're talking about today. Save your questions. I'm going to talk for about 50 to 55 minutes. Please write some questions down as you listen, and then be very happy to have a 10 to 15 minute question and answer session in the end. So the main point of the session here is this: is there a staffing crisis? Okay, so I'll just put it out to you, and I'm assuming that we have a lot of restaurateurs, owners, managers, and people obviously that work within the restaurant business. So I'll ask, how many of you are currently understaffed in your operation? Okay, so about half. So how many of you have been that way for over 6 months, are actively seeking? Okay. And is there anyone, an owner or a manager, that sees that their operation just simply cannot grow, open another restaurant, expand in the current environment of staffing? A few of you. Okay, so I meet a lot of people, multi-unit restaurateurs, that simply are holding back or delaying opening new restaurants in certain markets just simply because there aren't enough people. So many operators say they just simply cannot grow. So what's going on with the staffing shortage right now? Why is this such a dilemma for operators? Many things. Economic recovery. Obviously, that has fueled a blossom of many new restaurants, a lot more money to be spent in restaurants outside the home. So that's has a huge effect negatively on the availability of staff in the marketplace. With that is low unemployment. I mean, we're less than 5% unemployment nationwide. Obviously, supply and demand. Notoriously low pay and benefits. We're going to talk a little bit about this later on in the session, but it doesn't bode well for attracting people to this industry. So we're always challenged with that. It's sort of a transient industry. It's sort of this pit stop in college or a job until you get a real job sort of thing. And that mentality has been in existence in this industry for many years, and I don't see it going away anytime soon. So that transient method. Millennials, we'll talk a lot about millennials too. This is really changing the dynamic of how we train, how we recruit, how we empower our staff and keep them. So it really plays into the dynamic of the challenges of the restaurant business and staffing. Supply and demand, like I mentioned, more restaurateurs, more restaurants. Consider this. We're right now at the cusp of 2016 of more people spend more money outside the home than they actually spend meals cooked at home. So you can see the trend since the mid-1900s all the way till today. At this point, we're 50% of our money, 50% of our food dollar is spent in restaurants, but not just restaurants. We're talking about grocery stores, meals prepared and to go, sort of home meal replacement they call it. Gas stations are up their game in terms of selling far more than gas. They're selling roast chicken and burritos and all of these other things. Whether it's a frozen burrito or a pizza made to order, it's still competing for your dollar, and it's also competing for the available staff in the marketplace. So in many ways, just far more restaurants, far more food service operations. So, the big thing is how to compete with this. How do we build your team? And then the one question I would say ask yourself is, why do people work in your establishment? Okay, and that's the big thing, because in order to attract the kind of people that you want working for you long term, you have to create the environment under which they want to work there. So that's the first place to look. Is your environment a hostile, overworked, highly stressed environment? Or is it an engaging, pleasant place where people enjoy their job and work really hard because they're incentivized to do so? When we talk about millennial culture, this is absolutely critical to attracting the right people for these jobs. If you don't create an environment, a positive environment in your workplace, it's really going to be, you're going to have that turnover. And that's the difference. For those of us that have grown up in the restaurant business, we know it's a highly stressed environment. It's often long hours. It's, managers are working 60, 70 hours a week. That dynamic is definitely needs to change in the world that we live in today. Work-life balance is a huge, huge, huge issue for the millennial generation, and which I'll talk about in a little bit. And it's critical to retaining those employees. I like to do a thing called a stay interview. We've all heard of exit interviews. Well, what about a stay interview? So you're asking your staff, what is it about this place? You've been here for 2.5 years. What is it about this place that you like? You might not know. Survey your staff. Get a better understanding of why people stay, and use that as your hiring strategy. If there's a certain dynamic of people or persona of people that really enjoy their job, that's the persona of people that you should be looking for. And if you have people that criticize or things about the job that they don't like, if it's a manager that they don't like the way that maybe the manager is abusive or the manager just doesn't listen or any number of things, if the workplace environment it doesn't bode well for getting the job done, all of these things, listen and you have to change that environment, absolutely. It all starts there. It's not about finding better people. It's about changing what's going on in your own restaurant to make it an attractive place for people to want to work and to want to stay. So let's talk about millennials. I had a little quick fire session yesterday on millennials, and it's very interesting. This is the changing dynamic of the workforce. We all have heard the horror stories of the millennial culture, but the facts are 12 to 36 years old. The one thing about millennials and Generation Y, it's really the same thing. There's Generation X, then Generation Y, but understand that millennials are generally speaking early 80s to early 2000s. So 20 years old, anywhere from 12 to 36 years old, 1/3 of the US population, and 60 to 90% of the restaurant workforce. Okay, so if you turn your back on the millennials, you're making a big mistake. Okay, they grew up with the internet. They have values. It's not all about the job. Creativity, purpose, and community. Okay, so think about these things as you're developing your training programs, as you develop how you interact with your staff. It's vital. It's very, very important. It's not just a paycheck. They want to know that there's a future in this job. Yeah, sure, we're in a transient industry. Sure, there's plenty of things If millennials go to college, maybe they want a real job. But for those that work for you, embrace what motivates them. Because even if it's a short-term job, you're going to get far more from that individual than you would if you don't understand what makes them tick. They want work-life balance, especially for those managers. It's work smarter, not harder is sort of my mantra. I'll tell a manager, if you need to be here 65, 70 hours a week, that's great. But you're not required to be here 65. I'm not a clock watcher. Get the job done. Here's what you're responsible for. And if you can do it in 42 hours a week, great. That's awesome. Go fishing. Go on a vacation. Do a weekend or whatever. But that's really important. You have to embrace that in your staff. And they want to make a social impact. So, your values as a company, consider aligning those values with your staff, especially the millennial staff. Because if you make that connection with them, if you understand what gets them excited, what's important to them, and you align that with your own company mission, your core values, you're going to have a lot better experience retaining those millennial staff. And create the culture. So connect with your staff, okay? Very important. Be yourself. And again, we're talking about millennials. They don't want a boss. They want, someone that's more than that. So be their boss, but connect with them. All of the formalities of the workplace of the decades past is kind of eroding. So consider that you want this a little bit more of a one-on-one relationship with your staff. They want a coach. They want someone to mentor them, okay? Develop them as an individual, as a professional, and as a member of your staff, okay? Look beyond their individual position in your business and look into what makes them tick. What's their goals? And if you make that one-on-one connection, of course, that's going to be hard if you have 100 staff members in your business, but talk to your managers, and that's your MO. One-on-one connections with your staff on a day-to-day basis. It does an enormous amount to make them step up, and you know what? That's the motivating factor, because they don't want to let you down then. You make that one-on-one connection, that you're taking interest in them, in their careers, they're going to take a lot more pride in the work that they do for you. And lastly, strive for what matters. I talked a little bit about the culture, aligning your mission and goals, but walk the walk, okay? That's that sort of integrity component to it. If the manager doesn't get the respect of his or her staff, how are they going to delegate? How are they going to train? How are they going to really get them to do what needs to be done? So integrity, walk the walk. So strive to be that empowered manager. Talk about recruiting. Okay, so now that we have identified who's out there and what we're dealing with, where to find them? Obviously there's many avenues to find good staff. My number one, honestly, is referrals. That's the number one source. Connect with your staff. Absolutely get a referral program, a referral bonus. I recommend $100. $100, you get someone hired in my restaurant, I'll give you $100 cash. And a lot of referral bonuses say, well, after 3 months, then I'll give you, no, instant gratification. Okay, that's going to be a lot more incentive than waiting the 3 months. So now, how many have referral bonuses in your businesses? Good for you. It's the easiest way to bring staff in. And those are the kind of people that you want. The people that you're not looking for buddy friends, but you are looking, if I'm going to recommend someone to work for me, I'm probably going to bring someone that's either has talent or is not going to let me down, okay? So you're bringing in the good people, and those are front-up referrals, and the new person is probably going to have a little bit of incentive to not be a terrible employee because their friend recommended them. So it's a win-win. So that's my number one. Absolutely, for any management positions or any advances, look from within. I would rather take someone that's less qualified, that's worked for me for 2 or 3 years, than actually hire a manager from outside the company. The likelihood they're going to succeed is 2 or 3 or 4 times if you hire someone within. It's a great motivator. It sends a great message to your staff that this is what we do. The harder you try. As a dishwasher, if you nail it and you're rocking it every night, you're going to get that promotion. I'm going to move you out of that dish pit and get you into prep and line cooking. Same for front of the house. If you're an awesome bartender, a couple of years, you're my bar manager. Or a couple of months. You know how the turnover is. People expect it. And so send that message to your staff. We're looking for advancement from all our employees. One thing I've heard from a lot of operators is don't turn your back on people that worked for you and left. Keep in touch with those people that have moved on a positive note to just work for another place. Maybe they moved across town to make a little bit better money. The likelihood that job worked is far less than the likelihood that that the fact that they put 2 years in your business. So reach out to those guys and say, how's that new job for you going? Would love to have you back for an extra $1 what you're making now or whatever. Think about it. Bringing someone in that's already trained, ready to go, that seems like low-hanging fruit to me. Social media. A lot of people use social media to attract customers, right? We Facebook posts and Twitter and Pinterest and Instagram. What about using that as a tool to recruit? The Facebook post, I often say, one thing, of course, it should do a double duty. Taking pictures of your food, taking pictures of customers, happy customers and people at the bar, but taking pictures of the interaction with your staff, taking pictures of what's going on in the kitchen, cooks having a good time. This is a great place to work. And if you get the word out there constantly that this is a fun place to work, that's not a bad way to recruit employees. I would never put a hiring now sign in the window of my restaurant, but I would post a job post on Facebook, not a problem. And I always say, make sure your Facebook feeds to Twitter. It's an automatic. So if you have social media, if you got a robust social media program, you already know this, but one post feeds to Twitter. It can feed to Instagram and all these other things. If this, then that. Remember that. If this, then that is an app out there that it's a dashboard that allows you to do all that. So the majority of people, it's important to note, the majority of the people that you want working for you already have a job. So that's the sort of argument against posting job ads, because the vast majority of the people that are not working, they're not working for a reason. They either can't find the right job, or they got fired, or they just simply never satisfied with what they're doing. So those are the people, and you don't necessarily want those people. But if you have to hire and recruit, I think some of the larger sites, Career Builder, Monster, Snag a Job, Shift Gig, they work great for larger cities, like if you're in Chicago, New York, LA, San Francisco, and especially for management jobs. Really, for most smaller cities, Facebook is really the best way, Craigslist is the best way to go. Culinary Agents is a new one out there that is sort of geared toward kitchen help. But again, a little bit more towards the larger cities, and eventually some of these things will catch up. Sure, you have a visibility in Milwaukee, for those of you who are here. But again, social media, or Facebook is, Craigslist, is the best way to go. Post your post between 9 and 11 p.m. or weekends. This is when everyone's looking for a job. Sounds odd, but Facebook works as a top of the sort of a blog situation where your post will slowly make its way to the bottom of the page throughout the day. So if you're posting according to your schedule, 8 a.m., most of your people that you want to hire are not up at 8 a.m. So later in the afternoon, early into the evening, 9 to 11 p.m. is a good place. Easy to apply. Make sure, especially for hourly staff, make it easy to apply, otherwise you're going to lose them. I get a lot of my clients to say I don't require a resume. I know there's plenty of arguments against that. I mean, if you can't simply get in front of a computer and write your own resume, maybe you shouldn't have a job. But for a lot of low-level staff members, they just want to fill out an application, and there's nothing wrong with the qualifications of a lot of those people. So don't always necessarily require a resume. If they got it, great, of course. Wage and salary information. There's a lot of restaurant workers, and it's just they're looking for a job, but they want to know how much they're making. They're not going to waste their time going to an interview if it's less than what they're currently making. So, and that appeals a lot to the people that are looking around for a better job that already are working. So those are the people that you want. So to incentivize them or attract them, post what you're going to pay. Of course, post a range based on experience, but at least a range it's going to grab the people that are already working. So important. And then non-traditional posting. You want to pop. You want to stand out. These long, boring job descriptions that look so corporate. You need something that pops. I posted an ad not long ago. Hipsters, not slackers. Again, who are you appealing to? You're appealing to the millennial generation, okay? So you want to be fun, engaging. This is a cool place to work. It's tricky. It's tricked up. It's fun words. It's a fun, engaging environment. This is what you need to show in your job post. So make it fun. Slackers need not apply. Once you get them in the door, interviewing, okay? So interviewing, obviously, the number one goal of interviewing is deciding if this is a good fit for your restaurant, your staff, and can do the job in 15 to 20 minutes, okay? So a bit of a mind-bending sort of order, but how you do that is very meticulous. So is this person a good fit? Obviously, we talk about hard skills, okay? This is what I say is 25% of your interview, is looking at hard skills. The vast majority of people that interview, unfortunately, spend way too much time on the hard skills. Okay, what are the hard skills? Experience, education, any training, certification, okay? You get it. You have your resume in front of you far before the person walks through the door. So certainly way too many interviews are spent just reviewing the resume. So you want to dig in a little bit deeper, which you want to get into the soft skills. Okay. Now Harvard University did a study. 85% of job successes comes from people skills. Okay, not hard skills, not experience, not degrees. Okay, people skills. How well are they engaged in the workplace? Okay, so very, very important. I list 5 of those. So optimism, okay? Can you get this from a person sitting across the table from you? Are they optimistic? I see this all the time. Why are you so down? Everything's negative. You're just the facial expressions and everything. This is really important. Not only is this person not going to perform, but what is this person going to do to the team? Okay, so think about that. Optimism. I need someone that's upbeat, high energy, super bubbly, just awesome, awesome, awesome. Okay, that's what I'm looking for. That's number 1. Desire to grow. Do they have goals? Do they want to be challenged? Okay, do you want someone that I just need a job, just want to punch in, punch out? I mean, I know that's necessary evil a lot of times, especially when you're struggling to fill positions that are open. But seriously, I mean, you need someone that wants to move up the ladder. How you judge this person in 20 minutes, obviously that's challenging, but there's cues that you can see, questions that you can ask that are sort of speak to that. Do they have work ethic? A lot of this can be taken off of their job history, of course, but are they engaged? I mean, are they into what they're doing? Do they have the strong desire to work hard and get the job done and be productive? Obviously this is a hard thing to judge someone sitting across the table from you. But again, there's certain questions that you can ask that sort of speak to that as well. Empathy, okay? Honesty. Strong moral principles. Again, this is a part of your team. This is the people that you want serving your food, cooking your food, washing your dishes, greeting your guests at the front door. Are they just good people? Strong moral principles, desire to be engaging and kind. And then lastly, integrity. Strong moral principles, look for the physical cues, okay? Do they smile? Or they have positive facial expressions? Again, there's certain questions that you can ask that speak to this. 5 questions that I like to ask. And these are, they're all about the soft skills, okay? What's one thing that you'd change about your last job? Okay, one thing that you would change, sorry about the small type. One thing that you change about your last job and why, okay? It allows them to talk, the old, the top question asked in an interview, tell me about yourself. Well, this is a total softball question. So many people, psychologists, all of them, they say that's the number one question. This is my tell me about yourself. But it's a little bit more indicative of what their experience is with their job and sort of sets them up for, it also sets them up for bashing their former employee. So it kind of, it's sort of a trick question because you also want them to be positive. That's a big red flag for me is any negativity toward former employers. But it sets them up. What do you want? Why do you want to work for our company? Why are you sitting here? That's big for me, okay? If it's a paycheck, I mean, I get it. You're here for a job. I hear you pay better, or I hear, but give them opportunity to speak a little bit more to why they want to work for you. What are you passionate about? Again, a little bit of a softball, but nevertheless, you want to know what drives them. This is really important to me, and how they articulate that is as important as what they're saying. One of the things that if you ever, this is a freebie. If you ever interview a server, male or female, and what are your hobbies? And they say roller derby, hire them on the spot. Because this is something that hits all the measures. They're super high energy, they're competitive, they love doing stuff outside of work. It's a team environment. I mean, to me, roller derby, hire them on the spot and pay them $3 more than everyone else in the staff. It's a gimme. Proudest professional accomplishments. Again, not everyone is in this industry as a profession, but what are they into? Allow them to articulate what they've done, in their career. And maybe it's not necessarily industry-based, but it allows them to give you, sort of a window into their goals and what they're looking to do. Actually, I missed one there. And what do you do for fun? Bit of softball, but good window into the person, okay? What are your hobbies? I want people that have interest. I just go home and I, watch TV and get up and go to work. And then on my day off, I get drunk. It's like, well, could be a little bit more enthusiastic. That's telling for the kind of person that you're looking to have work for you. Okay, 6 red flags. Too many jobs or inconsistent job history. Obviously, this is something that you can see. I pass this up even before I schedule an interview. There's far too many applications to sift through, and don't waste your time. People are not going to stay. They've already told you that there's a high likelihood that this is not going to be their long-term job. Why would you go any further? End of relationship. Any impolite or interrupts. Listen, it's not just rude, it's telling you that this person is just, that's the way they are. I mean, they don't listen, they interrupt, it's all about them. It just turns me off immediately. End of discussion. Any negative complaints about former employer? Absolutely red flag, end of discussion, interview's over. Honestly, if you can't be professional enough, I don't care what happened at your former job. This is a small town, this is a small community. And word gets around. What are you going to say about me when you leave this job? So there's no way of knowing, but it just happens all the time. And, and for those of you that interview for jobs, big red flag. I mean, no matter what happened, find a nice way to tell people that we had differences of opinion, or whatever, however you want to phrase it. But anything, my boss was, not good. Lack of interest or energy, okay? Again, right there in front of you. If they're telling you already that I'm just here to punch a check and do as minimal work as possible, okay? You can tell this. This is body language. This is how they sit in their chair. This is how they conduct themselves during the interview. It's easy. Just, it's a big thing. And any unprofessional appearance, I mean, we're not, it's not a suit and tie interview. I get it. You're interviewing for a prep cook. But if you're disheveled and you have like the dirty shirt on, or just look like you didn't take any time at all to comb your hair or whatever, it just says a lot about who you are as a person. So again, red flag as well. So, and negative physical cues. Talking about just weird, something about this person, or just, I just couldn't. Gut instinct, use your gut. It tells you a lot. You might not be able to put your finger on it, but trust me, it'll come to pass when you hire this person. Oh yeah, I wasn't sure about that guy, or whatever. So trust your instinct, and again, there's plenty of applicants out there, so just pass on those people. And keep in mind also, not all great employees are great interviewers. So I know it's a stressful environment. When you get out of high school, the most stressful thing that you're ever going to do is sit down in an interview. So it's up to you, of course, to make them feel a little bit more comfortable, a very informal setting. So don't make it be a stress test for them. And if they don't pass, they don't get the job. Because not everyone deals with stress as well as others. So keep that in mind. Being stressed out is not a disqualifier. Okay, so now we hired this person, now we're into orientation, okay? So this is where the critical message happens, whether or not this person is going to decide whether or not they made a good decision agreeing to work for you, okay? So the important thing is cover the nuts and bolts, of course. I mean, that's what the orientation is about. What your job is like, obviously filling out all the requirement paperwork, punching in and out, understanding the general policies, procedures and whatnot. Understanding what their job is, what position, where they work, where their stuff is, so on and so forth. But more important than that, you want to make it a fun, relaxed, engaging experience. It should be the best day ever for your staff, especially when you have a new restaurant opening, you have 40 to 60 young millennials in your building. How are you going to kick it off? Okay, essential. Have a plan and make it fun. Icebreakers, team building, role playing. Yes, you have to cover the nuts and bolts. I get the fact that you might have to do a power presentation on the cocktail list, or you need to sit down and work through the points of service that you have taken so long to go through and dictate. I get it, but anything longer than 20 to 30 minutes of sit down, you got to get up. Get out of your chair, do something fun, engage, do a little team building, get stuff done. Even if it's like new restaurants, just like leave a lot of that busy work, unpacking boxes, setting up the bar, glassware, all of this busy work, putting together tables. I see, let's have a race. Who can put together 10 tables faster? We've done that before, and then make sure you check them to make sure the screws are in. But just stuff like that. Make it fun, make it engaging. Reward people for engagement. So for those that answer questions, I mean, it could be silly stuff like handing around a hat with candy in it. Having little prizes and tchotchke items from your vendors. Maybe like beer hats or t-shirts or cozies, or go out and get some gift certificates from local restaurants. Do some trade, 10 or 15 or $20 gift certificates, and then throw them out as prizes. I mean, it's a little of incentives, doesn't mean much, it doesn't cost you anything, but it's just like that sort of engaging, fun atmosphere. And, again, make it fun. Whoever's leading the charge on the, whatever manager you have heading up the orientation, make sure they're cool and fun, and engaging, wearing a silly hat or funny thing on their t-shirt or whatever it is, but you got to engage with them. Make it fun. So, because you want them to go home that night and say, how's your, when their buddy or roommate or parents, how's your new job? What are they going to say? Ask yourself what you want them to say. And if they say, oh God, I'm so overwhelmed, there's so much to know, I got a quiz tomorrow on the menu, oh, I don't know if this is going to work out, my boss is creepy, my co-workers are this or whatever, that's not what you want them to say, and you're going to lose them. So you want them to say, wow, this place is awesome, it's so fun, I can't believe I'm going to be working here. So far, so good. And that's what you want, and that's how you're going to keep those millennials. In training, you want robust training. It's very, very important. Sit down and draw it out. How do you want this to work? Have a plan, okay? Absolutely. It's not throw into the fire sort of generation anymore. Who's had the throw in the fire training before? We all have, right? Not the best way to learn, okay? Kill or be killed, or sink or swim. Not motivating, not doing it with the millennials. So have a very orchestrated, very transparent way to go about doing it the chatterbox way, or whatever the name of your restaurant is. Learning is hearing, seeing, and doing, okay? As an educator, we've learned this long ago. Yes, the PowerPoint does a good job of distributing the information. But hearing you gather 15 to 20%. If you see it, it goes up to 30 to 40% of retention, I'm talking about. If you're doing it, it goes up to 60 to 70% if you do it. Interestingly enough, if you show someone else, you have a 90 to 95% retention rate. So think about it. Train the trainer. Okay, I want you to make the salad, and then I want you to show him how to make the salad. The retention rate skyrockets. So think about how you want to do that in your organization. So having that plan, understanding how your staff is going to be trained. And training is everything, okay? Do not underscore the importance, or do not overlook the importance of training. The old adage is, what if I train them and I invest all this money and then they go work across the street? But my question is, what if you don't train them and they stay? What's the difference? What's worse for you? So train your staff and do it in a very knowledgeable, orchestrated way. And when you have once you get the restaurant open and you're ongoing, identify the key staff people that you want to train others, okay? And pay them an extra $1 an hour for a training wage, front or back of the house. And it does so many things. One is, this is the person that you want to train the next generation of your staff. They're going to, you're going to invest in them, and it empowers them. They make a little bit of extra change on the side. And what message are you sending to that staff member? That you trust them, and that they take pride in their work, and they're even going to take more pride in their work because you're trusting them to take the newbie under his or her wing and train them. So, big fan of the shadowing. And plus, as a manager, you don't have time to train each and every person. Okay, you need to delegate that out. Of course, you want some face time with the new employee, but you're general manager. You're too busy. Even a shift manager can't constantly be working with each and every new hire. Next to objectives and takeaways, okay? This is Education 101, okay? As an instructor, we need to have clear objectives and clear takeaways. This is what you're going to learn today. Today you're going to learn how to use the fryer, okay? And then we're going to walk through how to turn it on, how to fill it, how to clean it, how to empty it, how to filter, safety, troubleshooting. That's what we're going to learn, okay? That's on the front end. And then on the back end, okay, so Walk me through how to change the filter. Walk me through how to clean it. Walk me through this. How's the, how did you do? So a checkpoint, okay? It's 101 education, but this is what you should incorporate into your training modules. Answering questions at the end, okay? You're asking questions of them and making sure that they are answering questions that they may have at the end of the training session. And break it up. I'll show you a little model that I've developed. It's ongoing, okay? So training doesn't end the first week or two, okay? I'm huge on this, and so many restaurateurs overlook the fact that, especially when, can you imagine your first day on the job? There's a multitude of things to remember. I can't remember, think about the retention rate of the first day on the job. We've all had those days, and it's overwhelming. You write stuff down, you go home, maybe you actually look at it when you get home, but you come to work the next day, where's the retention? So the next week, week 3, week 4, month 2, month 4, keep it going. Opportunities, lineups every night. How many have regular lineups for their service staff in the restaurants? Raise your hands, okay? You guys, it's a perfect opportunity to reiterate those policies and procedures. Check up on, menu items. If you're not tasting your staff every night on something in the menu, maybe not just the specials, but the items that are always on the menu. When's the last time they had the meatloaf that's been on the menu for 15 years? And the customer asks, how's the meatloaf? Oh, what is it? I mean, you don't even know because you tasted it 2 years ago when you started working there. So constantly update the staff. And also, be honest, staff members, it's a good incentive to get them to come to the lineup, okay? There's 5 dishes set out. Little to no cost to you. You might spend $10 total or less in food costs to taste 4 or 5 items and talk about it. Okay, now, Glenn, how would you sell this item? What do you think? What do you taste in this? Chef, tell me about the preparation. It's just, again, low-hanging fruit. You should be doing it every night. Talk about the beer specials. Talk about, here's our special cocktail that we want to sell. What's the next promotion? What's coming up? What's events coming up? And also single out some employees that have done a great job. Last week, Taylor came in on his day off and saved our butts because we were down a grill cook. Thanks, Taylor. All of this thing. Recognize your staff in those meetings. Hold the standards daily. Okay, standards, recipes, portion sizes, presentation, points of service. The glass that I want my Rob Roy served in are constantly going to start to slay down, okay? That is, it's a constant degradation of your staff. Your staff will constantly put pressure on you to lower your bar. Don't fall for it. Keep that bar constantly, okay? The constant gentle pressure. One book that I recommend is a book by Danny Meyer, who's a New York restaurateur. It's called Setting the Table, Danny Meyer. And I'm going to reference something that he talks about, constant gentle pressure, about keeping those standards all the time. And the constant gentle pressure is, it's constant. So every day you hold those standards. The manager is not sitting in the office. The manager is out and about, watching servers, watching the bartender, how they're cleaning, how they're doing the kitchen. The sous chef, the chef is constantly in the kitchen, watching the standards, watching the plates presentations, wiping the plates, corrections. And it's not all criticism either. Keep in mind, it's a learning opportunity, okay? Not a criticism. Teachable moment is another phrase in education. People don't like criticism. So, especially millennials, you don't want to be criticized constantly. So you sort of use this what they call the sandwich approach to correction, which is you start with a positive, negative, and then finish with a positive. So if you have to correct someone by, overcooking a steak, I know you were busy and you were doing a great job, but that was a $15 steak that you just wasted. So I know that you're going to kill this in a couple more weeks and you're going to be good, but just keep that in mind. So you see how I've corrected that person. Instead of just getting up in their stuff and yelling at them, Start with a positive, negative, positive. Okay, this is millennial culture we're talking about, and it's very, very important. The gentle is what I'm talking about. So constant, gentle, and then pressure. You're just constantly putting that pressure on your staff. Mediocre is not good enough. I want perfection. This is the integrity that I'm talking about, because you want people to drink the Kool-Aid of perfection in your business. If you want an exceptional customer experience in your restaurant, then you have to walk the talk, and you have to make sure that that bar is there. It's never wavered. Another story about that Danny Meyer, in his book, he calls the salt shake theory, the salt shaker theory. And it basically is a metaphor for where he puts his salt shaker in his dining room. The salt shaker goes here, center of the table. And it's a metaphor for how that bar is always there. Because if the salt shaker is 4 inches to the left on this table and 2 inches to the right on this table, where is your standards? You've just relinquished your standards. So that means that you don't care about the portion size in your Caesar. You're not really that concerned about how the host greets the diner, or how the bathrooms get cleaned, or how the dishes are stacked, and all of those things. So see the metaphor there. The minute, and he says funny, it's the minute you let that salt shaker a 1/4 inch to the left, throw them the keys to your restaurant, because they now own your restaurant. They're controlling what's going on in that restaurant. So hold that bar, but do it in a positive way. So this is I'm sorry you can't see this, but an orchestrated training. So this is my training. This is the sort of self-guided tour through training. And so you start off with the nuts and bolts, the orientation, the tour. Okay, now we're going to go on the tour, and we're going to get your paperwork. Here's the forms, and then there's these competencies. Okay, espresso machine competency, how to work the coffee machine, how to clean the soda machine, how to set up the side station, how to set up the host station, how to. This is the care and feeding of the fryer. This is the care and feeding of the dry storage area. Okay, so and then as they go about their training, whether it be a 3-day or 5-day or whatever, they check these things off. And then at the end of the training, you sit down and say, okay, I see you got safety and sanitation video watched. Good. I see that you've learned how to use the combi oven. Good. So you see what I mean? It's all clear for them to see, and it's a self-guided tour throughout your business, front and back of the house, no matter who it is. And all the systems and all the forms and all of the relevant menu guides and ingredient guides and cocktail list and wine list and all of that is also included in this. So again, be meticulous about your training. Compensation. Let's see. Compensation. I'll go through this. 1 in 6 workers live in poverty. Okay, so this is an interesting statistic. We talk a lot about wages and all of the issues that concerns with that, but I mean, that's one thing that's very interesting about this business, is that I know that we have narrow margins, but we also have to look at this as an idea. The number one way to compete for quality workers is to pay better. Scratch that, not the number one way, but it is one way. So can you be more competitive? Yes, you absolutely can. And you make it up with lower turnover, better trained staff, more productive staff. That's how you pay your staff better. That's how you pay your staff better than anyone else. Instead of having 15 servers in your dining room, that 20% of them are rock stars, the middle 40% are hold their own, and the bottom 20% are a disaster. No, just get rid of the disaster, pay the rest of them. If you have 5 cooks and your staff, and the one person left, and you told the other 4 cooks, hey, you know what? Should I replace this person or pay everyone else another $1? Do you think they'd be incentivized to get the job done and prove to you that they actually could do without that 4th person, or that 3rd prep cook, or that 3rd dishwasher on the weekends? Think about it. Because the money is on the table. It doesn't have to be your money. It's the money that you save by lowering your labor costs, by having better trained, more productive, and less staff members. It's the warm body theory, and we've all We know what that is. We're just simply need a warm body on that station. You get what you pay for, absolutely. Pay people what they're worth to the operation, not what they will take. Okay, and I'll explain this a little bit on pay scale. It's such a subjective thing, and I've fallen for it many times. Is that you find a really good line cook, and the first thing you ask is what were you making at that other place? I'll pay you the same, or maybe a little bit less, or if they'll take it, maybe not. But it's just sort of auction of their pay, right? Don't fall for it. Establish your pay scale at your restaurant. Okay. Make it objective and transparent. This is what we pay, starting dishwasher. This is what we pay always and forever. Of course, adjust it in time, every year, relook at it. But don't make it a secret, okay? Because, a lot of people, a lot of restaurants have this it's policy. You can't discuss your pay with it's grounds for firing. If you tell someone else that by the way, that's illegal. You can't do that. But so many businesses actually have that policy. They don't want everyone knowing what other person's making, because the next thing you know, well, this guy's making this and I'm better. So transparent. Multiple ranges. 4 criteria. Okay, so this is how I establish my pay. Your experience, that's number 1. The position you work, dishwasher, cook, grill cook, whatever, head server, bartender, bar back, busser, whatever. The skill set, okay, this is subjective. But how productive they are. Can they handle the busy Saturday night by themselves on the sandwich station? Skill set. So subjective, but nevertheless, one of the criteria. And lastly, the service. How long have they worked for you? So those 4 are the criteria under which you will hire. And set this up. Everything is going to be different, but this is sort of a model that I've used in the past. It doesn't work for everyone, but so every person, actually you rate them on a score of 1 to 6 in all of those criteria. When they first start, their service might be a 0 or a 1 because they just started with you. But that all it's transparent. This is what we do. And this goes into their file. And then when they get a little bit better in 6 months during their review, well, it looks like you no longer are working prep. Now you're working hot apps. And that's actually worth, an extra point or an extra 2 points. So you see what I mean? It's called a rubric. And this is what we use in education for grading students for their grade. It's class participation and punctuality, not being late, and all of that. So consider this. Don't go home and just wholesale change your hiring and salary policy, but it's an interesting thing to look at because it shouldn't be as subjective as most of you do in this very, very important component of hiring staff. Let's see what we're doing here. Okay, incentive and bonus programs, loyalty programs, I talked a little bit about this, very important. You should be doing it. You should absolutely be doing it. It's free, practically. And if you want people to stay with you, that's very important. Measurable achievements, it all comes down to, giving them, a proper review, a proper sit down. And if you're not reviewing your employees on a regular basis, you need to be doing that. That's a no-brainer. It's a complete engagement and an open, opportunity to engage one-on-one with an employee. People love to talk about themselves. You remember going to getting your one-on-one with the teacher in school, and you get to talk about your performance, and they tell you where you could be improving. This is a perfect opportunity. Again, the millennial set loves it. We all love it. Customer feedback is how well they did on the customer feedback forms. Check averages could be a part of it. Other benchmarks, or if they went out and got ServSafe, or if they went out and got a degree. If they were in school and they got a degree, give them a little bump. Now they're a degree holding staff member. Manager bonuses. A few of you asked about this before. I base it on 4 criteria, typically. Top line revenue, cost percentages, depending on your department, but always hourly labor, food cost, liquor cost, if in the case of a front of the house. I always make the general manager accountable for food costs because it's under their purvey. Labor cost as a percentage, and also turnover. Okay, if you keep labor costs is one thing, but if you have 150% turnover, subjective. And then the last criteria is subjective. So 4 criteria, the last criteria, subjective. How well is the restaurant managed? Are the guests generally happy? Is the food generally good? Are the staff generally happy? Is the kitchen generally clean? Are the health department visits, are you getting bad marks from the health department? So 4 subjective measures. And then lastly, we'll talk about turnover, and then we'll go into a Q&A. This is the critical thing that's absolutely killing you is turnover. And if you take one takeaway from this talk is how do you eliminate turnover? Because that really speaks to everything else we talked about. Eliminating turnover is the number one thing that you can do to improve productivity, improve employee morale, and guest experience at the end. 62% average in the restaurant industry, okay? So if you have 100 employees, you're hiring 62 people every year. Imagine the time that it takes to hire one employee, okay? 42% for the regular private sector. So we're 20 points higher than the private sector. Unexcusable. And 35% of restaurants have 100% turnover or more, typically in the fast food or fast casual marketplace. The hard cost of turnover, of course, recruiting, interviewing, hiring, paying for a headhunter, paying for an ad. That's a little bit, but interviewing, the time that it takes you to sit down and interview or go through a big stack of applications, and then training that person for 2 weeks or whatever. But the soft costs are more important to look at. The loss of productivity, the guest experience might have been missed. You're short staffed, so you can't have the same turn times. You're losing money on the turn times. Employee morale. Those guys have to work harder because you're down a person. And you know, when this happens for weeks, it's really hard on your employees. It's why can't we find another, what? I have to work salad again and the hot fryer because you haven't hired someone yet? You know, it's not good for morale. You've taken the time to hire that person and kept them, and suddenly it's just taken a toll. The true cost from turnover, and look at this, did a little analysis. Some say it's 10 to 30%. I've seen some people say, some labor experts say 100% of a person's yearly salary is the cost of one employee turnover. But we're going to use 15% as a benchmark and do it for a 50 employee business at 60% turnover, which is pretty much the national average. So look at the numbers. You get on average $10 an hour, which is the national average on hourly rate. Okay, and this is hourly turnover. Multiplied by average 30 hours a week, which is in many ways less than average, so being conservative, times 52 weeks, that's $15,000 on average your hourly staff is making per year. Times 15%, which is the turnover cost, so $2,340. That's on the low end, okay? And if you look at 60% turnover times 2,340, that's 30 people every year. That's $70,200 a year, okay? When you do the numbers, and I would tell you to find out what your turnover is. I would say a vast majority of you, for good reason, don't know what your turnover is. Check it, monitor it, make it your bonus base for your general manager. Turnover is costing you critically in your business. And think about taking half of that, $30,000, $35,000, and putting it back into training, better pay for your staff, better recruitment practices, and just better operating policy when it comes to labor and staffing. Okay, very important. And then you're going to save it tenfold on the flip side. So that's it's just killing it. It's killing us. Turnover. Last slide here. Decreasing turnover, real basic. Exit interviews. Why are people leaving you? Do you even know? Okay? People sometimes like, I'm just glad this person's gone. You know what? I'd say 7 out of 10 times, I'm just going to throw this out there. 7 out of 10 times, if an employee develops into a terrible employee, it's not all of them. You've failed with that person. You failed in motivating them. You failed in finding out the true good worker in them. You know, I know this is a lot of kumbaya talk here, but it's true. It really is true. In many cases, you're failing the employer, they're not failing you. So find out what it is. You know, maybe it was the manager. I don't get motivated when someone's yelling at me, so I'm going to be a terrible employee. and I'm going to move on to another great restaurant company, and I'm going to do a great job for them. And I see it all the time. Loyalty programs, we talked about it. Transparency and open door policy. Make them feel like there's no secrets. Everything's open. They can come to you with an issue. You're not this unapproachable manager. Clear path for advancement. What are your career goals and how can you reach them? Work-life balance. Don't overwork your staff. Stop calling them in on their day off. To stop asking them to work later than what's on the schedule. Consistently over and over. One up from time to time, I get it. Loyal employers don't mind, plus they're getting paid. And overtime, that's great. But don't abuse it. And then lastly, gratitude. Here's for gratitude. I mean, just appreciating your staff. There's little cost, there's no cost to you to show your staff. Walk through the kitchen at the end of the night. Great job, guys. We just killed it. You guys did a rocking job. Thanks for closing last night. The walk-in looked stellar. I appreciate the extra time. Thanks for being such a rock star in the station. I know I hit you with a few extra tables, but you pulled through. How hard is that to do to your staff, and how important is it that they walk away from that? So that's the easy stuff.